I'm not a geek. I do dream, I seem to live in one, but I really am fascinated by mind shifting. So what I want to talk about is that. There's something miserable has happened. But this is normal. The goddess of technology doesn't love me. Can we get back to the, oh, great, lovely. So, yes, we'll come back to that later. Do you know what that is? It's the first visual image that humans could have had after the Big Bang. This is the shape of the universe 380,000 years after the Big Bang, because that was a time when space, whatever was being created, was cool enough to let photons out. And this is a fossil image that has been discovered 10 years ago, and I'm very surprised that it has not bandied more, because it's such an extraordinary thing. That, for me, is my latest massive mind shifter. When I say massive, I mean it because we shift our minds all the time. You know, you decide not to send that letter, you have had a mind shift. You decide not to go and see that friend that evening, you've had a mind shift. But we have them all the time. But a massive mind shifting is something that enlarges your sensibility and your consciousness. And it's akin to something that Oliver Wendell Holmes said, which is, once a great idea has hit your mind, it can never recover its original proportions. Consciousness is evolution looking back at itself. This, when you look at this, makes you 13 billion old, 13 billion years old, plus 380,000, because it was what it took for getting that image. But that is our age. Why? Because every one of these designs, if you project them into their expansive, we know they have an expansive universe, follow exactly the pattern that eventually will be taken by galaxies and by individual planets. So this image is correct. It's not just, oh, well, it just happened, this is an explosion. No, this is the picture of where we are today, but at the beginning. So that makes you 13 billion years old. I love this thought by French philosopher Blaise Pascal: by space, universe contains me and swallows me like a point, but by thought, I contain it. That's why consciousness is evolution looking back at itself. My first sort of massive mind shift of that kind started this way. That's the Earth seen from the moon. When we had our first pictures of the Earth as it really was, seen from the moon, that gave me a sense of the much biggerness of my own reality, of the reality that surrounded me, its real size. And then, here are two mind shifts at a glance. First, the Earth seen at night, and then, again, still seen at night, Aurora Borealis. I don't know how many of you have seen an Aurora Borealis. I have, because I live in Canada. But I haven't seen that many, but maybe 3 or 4. And every time I see one, I have this extraordinary mind shift. So a mind shift is something that these things are a bit like a mandala. This morning I have a lot of points in common with Dr. Machaya. In bits, you'll see why. And we basically look at these things, and some kind of sensibility change happens in us. For example, this is a different kind of mind shift. I was brought up in India, so that between the age of 6 and 9, I'd say, I first of all learned English. You can still hear it, in fact, in India. But I also learned an entirely different way of being. Now, that wasn't a mind shift, not a sudden one. That was a long-term mind shift. And because we are now into a long-term mind shift, I think it's relevant to pick up from our own experience those that have been and that have matured into something else. Varieties of mind shift. Conscious, like the ones I just described, or unconscious, like my experience of India. Sudden. Anybody here gets really hit sometime with the impossibility of being? That's why I'm saying I live in a dream, so I can dream. But it's true. Every now and then you get a hit. What's going on here? It throws you back those 380,000 years and 13 billion. Short-term and long-term, the problem is if you have these big ones, those sort of strange existential moments, just keeping the memory properly is difficult. Just keeping the memory. You can remember that you've had it, but it's a bit like love. You can remember you've had it, but you can't feel it anymore. For some, depends on the day. Individual, collective, individual being my experience versus all of us. Usually, the long one, continuous, unconscious, long-term are also clearly collective. And we are going through a very large collective mind shift to which I will return. Desired or undesired, yes, I do. I need to change my mind about this because I'm not going in the right direction. You really want this, and you basically would like to provoke it. Undesired, well, it's psychosis. You have mind shifts in various kinds of situations where they are mostly unpleasant. So it's not as if, we just sort of think, mind shifts are a very big different thing. Private, keeping it to myself, or shared. I remember Molière, in his play Don Juan, at the beginning has Don Guzman talking to Sganarelle. There are two servants of Don Juan and Don Elvira, and Sganarelle says, tobacco is so fantastic. And he proceeds to talk about tobacco as if he was smoking marijuana. He talks about it makes you share, it makes you love people, it makes you intelligent. Anyway, so that's a shared mind shift. Here are the long-term mind shift. 1,700 generation of oral societies versus 300 generation of writing and 35 generation only of print. The acceleration of transformations according to the type of technology that language uses is absolutely phenomenal. Then we have the present time in color, which are 10 generations of electricity. That's a big deal. That's the deal. We go from oral to literate, we take possession of language, we internalize it, and we become masters of our destinies. We move from literate to electric, and suddenly we have to share power over language between us and machines. We don't command it anymore. We have a very different situation right now unfolding precisely because electricity is taking over as a basic ground of our being, our sensibility. That's the problem. So here's an example of two different types. I'm absolutely fascinated by epistemology, and this is an epistemological kind of adventure. Here's a very fascinating comparison between a Chinese sensibility frame of mind and a Western one, according to traditional relationship with information, language, and writing system. If you have this is the I Ching around that big circle, and at the center you have acupuncture points. This perception of totality, this world seen as relationship as opposed to an empty space full of objects, that's a sensibility and a way of looking. There's no word for future in Chinese, which is very interesting. Future is expressed, but it is not. It's an enormous present in which various relationships are actually being created. You're in a perpetual horoscope situation. You're forever interpreting the various connections between the various signs or various situations that you have. It's a natural hypertextual mind. And the same goes for the relationship to the body in acupuncture point. On the other hand, this is humanism. This is Da Vinci. This is the proportion of man. Man is a measure of the universe. It's man, not woman. And it's perfectly proportionate in the way of rationality, that rationality which is sequential, and that comes with literacy, comes with learning to read and write. But it's not electricity. So here is a machine. It's just one among the many kind of wonders or strange things that we have, and it's a system that allows you, by putting this gear on your head, to actually command action on a computer. It's very primitive, yes. It's called emotive. There are 5 or 6 varieties in the market today. It's like the Mattel glove that allowed you to discover what virtual reality was for kids. This is just as distributed as a Mattel glove in the general culture. What it is, it's a weak signal of the future. It's a signal of the time when, in fact, thinking about something, just like Harry Potter, makes it happen. So we're in a situation where we are embryonically going towards this direct, constant mind shifting, I would say, with our technology. So what are the... I'm missing a few words here. Yes, we changed the format, and that's what happens. Signs of a new, general, massive mind shifting that is occurring now. Sharing one's mind with a screen 8 hours a day. This is, I'm sure, the average for all of us. Whether it's a cell phone screen or your television screen or it's your computer screen, your house screen, you're sharing a lot of time with your screen. Affected deeply by one's digital unconscious. The digital unconscious is everything that's known about you that you don't know, or that can be known about you that you don't know. It has as much power on your life as Freudian unconscious, which you also don't know. Revealing the digital unconscious may be a complicated thing that will happen, and there are various things that are moving in that direction, but the fact remains, just by going on Google, already your digital unconscious is being fed by your selection of various things that interest you, that are taken a record of. Moving with your cell phone on or off, you are being traced by your cell phone identity, and all that comes. That's your digital unconscious. So this is something that we never had before, right? Publishing oneself in profile and exporting self. Self was built by the internalization of language by reading. That's how you made a self. And now that self is being exported as a profile, or exported in Second Life, or exported in various kind of forms. And eventually, our kids will actually believe much more in the self they export than the one they build within. We have to think about that possibility. Going hypertextual online, in mind, and in life. That's your cell phone makes you a hypertextual node in connection with everything. So hypertext is the normal distribution of cognition today. And living in an unending present, the French call it présentisme, that we actually know. There's no future, no past. Just like the Chinese, an enormous present that unfolds, that is explored in different ways. And then something that's missing because of the transformation of the program is doubting the reality of reality. Philosophy is now rife with discussion about, is it real? Boy, when I was saying these things as a student, a first-year university student, people laughed at me. They said, come on, that's a sophomore question. Well, that sophomore question has become a very important question. A lot of people are saying, well, what's real, what's not real? Where does it come from? How far does it go? Is it not a consensus? And various other things. The joy of mirror neurons. Yes, that's a fascinating discovery that was made in Italy by Giacomo Rizzolatti and his group. A mirror neuron is a neuron in your body, or in bodies of mammals, that actually imitate the action that they see before they actually either do the action or simply just interpret the action. Mirror neurons have now been discovered to also play an enormously important role in empathy and relationship. And this is where I conclude on this particular issue, mirror neurons also are helping the brain to restructure itself according to the media that it's using. Our brain is extremely flexible, and it does adapt itself to ride a bicycle or to play with a computer. It does. But when it plays with a computer a lot, it then becomes much better at playing with computers and riding bicycles, which is normal, as a musician would tell you, practicing. Mirror neurons are the ones that create the feeling of sympathy and empathy and make you understand the movies that you see. You basically are. It's not just because your brain or your eyes are looking at, your whole body is actually interpreting the music, the thing that you see. So who are these digital natives? Right? We have seen them today in great numbers, and they're wonderful. But they're already hybrids. This is a Second Life picture of a person who has decided that half of herself would be digital and the other half would be simply analog. But it's interesting that it's a very good image to express the kind of... Now, neurological science is now showing the very, very specific effects. One effect is not very good. Kids today, according to some long-term studies, are less capable of recognizing faces or expression than they used to be. Is it because they are using so many emoticons, which reduce the level of emotionality and the definition of emotions? Or is it simply because they're spending so much time in front of a screen that they see it in a flat way and they forget how to use other kind of cues? There's a lot of things going on now that are creating problems, and there are naysayers and people who are positive, and I wouldn't like to be classified as either one. But for example, Nicholas Carr tells us that Google is making us stupid, and Sherry Turkle is telling us that we are all alone together. As she explained, she says, by being in front of a screen all the time and not going down into the street, you're actually losing some connectivity and some face-to-face relationship. So there are some problems with this thing. We are basically moving towards the era of Pinocchio 2.0. Pinocchio was referred to this morning. Pinocchio is an extraordinary story of transformation. It is understood by the whole world. I talked about Pinocchio in Korea, and everybody knew everything that I was saying about Pinocchio. Why is Pinocchio important? Because he is the representation of mechanized man. Going back to the countryside, to Kolodi, where he was, not being recognized by anybody because he's been working as a workerman in the factories of the Po Valley, and not recognize his own people or any of the rhythms in which he is. He's made of wood. He is woodenized. He is Charlie Chaplin in modern times. Remember that? That's what it is. So Pinocchio 2.0, is the enormous quantity of images of ourselves that are projected by mainly American cinema, which is getting very good, by the way, or by other general cinema. But I can give you Being John Malkovich. I can give you, we didn't talk about Jewison's most important recent film, which is Avatar. These are images. Our future may be, our destiny may be to become our own avatar. Who knows? But it's a point that Pinocchio 2.0 is the various images that are given to us of the possibilities that we can actually be transformed. But it is electronic. It's not mechanical anymore. So it's a very different kind of Pinocchio that's coming out. So the question is, what shape does it have? So we need wonder. We need artists. I've always have wondered at Raphael Lozano-Hemmer, wonderful works, vertical elevation. He uses in cities enormous setups of searchlights, and then ask around the world on the web for people to design the pattern that these searchlights can have over the city. That's a very strong emotion. That's the return of the child, the inner child. That's the understanding of something that's the magic of what's going on. So I consider that we do need very much, because we are like fish in the water, not really recognizing to what extent we are being transformed by our own technologies. It is very important to have a mind shifting going on every now and then. And in fact, a mind shifting that we've seen happening all day today, certainly. So there are some different methods of mind shifting. This is one of the worst. That's Alien. This is the most disgusting image I ever saw in my life. This beast coming out of the stomach of the astronaut. I should skip it, but I'll just tell you that Georges Bataille, my references are French, Georges Bataille, the French philosopher, used to take images of tortured people to have a mind shift. It's amazing to think about, people don't really know much about this in Georges Bataille. No, much better method is this one. You take a really, really major problem and you turn it into an art form. The practice of reversal is one of the most healthy and wonderful, but sometimes difficult thing to do when you are facing a major difficulty. You transform it. You find you're like a rat in a maze, but you will eventually transform it, and you'll eventually perhaps recognize that one of the most important things in transforming it is attitude. Here is an image that has conquered the world, continues to conquer the world across its own culture, of an attitude. An attitude, this one of repose and turning away from the problem in some ways, but reflecting it in a different way. Our attitudes are our biggest master, but we also are the biggest master of our attitude. So keep shifting.